This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing a friend of mine for over 30 years, circa 1992, Emory University, fellow AE Pi fraternity member, outstanding athlete of the decade back in the day, coming from Atlanta, moving directly into the Halo sector, bricks and mortar, Marcus Gordon.
Thanks. 30 years, Pete. That's too long, brother.
Too long, but has a lot of legacy to it. So anytime you need a podcast, bro, you can text me and we will just jump online. So I'm going to do a little Mr. Rogers thing now. I'm going to put on my Halo cape, and we are going to get rolling. So Marcus, give us the abridged version from being a star basketball player, solid athlete, and strong pledge back in the day to where we are now.
Yeah, I think strong pledge is a little gracious. So, it's funny, Pete, one of my best memories for back in the day for us is when 94, when we won the fraternity championship, right? And I think, just back in that moment, fraternities, basketball, all that stuff, it was about coming together, right, as a group and a unit, and just doing the extraordinary, which was for us at that time, doing what we did was extraordinary. And I think just carrying that forward, like you, I've been a lifelong, I'm a native New Yorker, lifelong athlete. I've always just enjoyed being in and around sports, tennis, basketball, baseball, suffering, lifelong Jets fan, but prideful Yankee fan at the same token.
Yep.
And then, so, going through college, I got into sports earlier in my career, was working with some athletes, sports celebrities, doing marketing, promotion, all that stuff. And it was about that time playing a lot of basketball, just pick up basketball Saturday, Sunday mornings, Thursday afternoons, at the gym, what we all kind of did. And then I hurt my knee. And it wasn't really enough to require surgery. I'm like, I just need to take a break from basketball. And prior to that, when I was growing up, my dad was one of the OG kind of triathletes in the Northeast that had what was called the Bud Light Triathlon Series, right? Imagine that today, a triathlon series sponsored by a big beer brand. Right now, it's Athletic Brewing, the big beer sponsor of Ironman. Anyway, right. He was doing triathlons, up and down the East Coast. And this is back on steel bikes and the cables, and they were just winging it, right? Having a good time, trying to figure out this thing. Originally, triathlon had its roots in Kona in the mid to late 70s. Everyone saw it on TV, this grandiose event, originally in Maui, then Kona, Hawaii. But then, to cut this story short, I hurt my knee. And then my dad's like, let me just send my bike. Maybe you go out for some bike rides. I said, great. We're not cycling. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Cover a lot of ground. Don't have to worry about running. It's outdoors. You get to enjoy everything. I'm like, maybe I'll start swimming now too. Low impact. I started swimming. Finally, my knee started getting better, doing some rehab and stuff. I said, maybe I'll try and put this all together. So in 2008, I did my first half Ironman in Eagleman outside of Washington, D.C., about an hour east on the Maryland coast. And then really from there, I just kind of got immersed in the culture of endurance sports, primarily Ironman, iron distance, triathlon races. I've raced everything from, sprint all the way up to the full distance Ironman. I've done the world champs a few times.
What's the Eagleman, by the way?
What is it?
Yeah, what is it? What's
it's
that?
It's a half Ironman. It's a half Ironman. Yeah, they have a full race out there now. But
okay.
So over the course of the last 17 years, I've been kind of my passion project hobby, right, to keep me active has been triathlon, endurance sports, and Ironman triathlon. Along the way, I've traveled the world, done events all over the world. I've met amazing people. And just kind of as the last handful of years, and the growth in this sport's been phenomenal, right? I mean, we can go through some of the data a little later, but it's just been the growth in endurance sports from 5Ks, right? You start out running a 5K all the way to ultra events now, ultra running, ultra cycling, has just been explosive. And I've kind of witnessed that firsthand. And I said, what can I do as a practitioner? My background's in marketing, health tech marketing, to kind of vector all this together, right? Coming out of post-COVID, when now, we've just seen the ability for people to gather in a community setting, right? Whatever your hobby is, whether it's, whether it's for art or whether it's for running or triathlon, being able to get back together and experience these types of things in person is something that I'm passionate about. So, initially, attending, your Halo Talk session, Halo Academy, I think it was 2023
Yep.
when I first, when I attended that session, I'm like, there's got to be something out here that for endurance athletes that's missing. So I kind of took a look around, and lo and behold, there is currently, despite all the boutique gyms and lifetimes that exist across the country, and Lifetime's been a partner for triathlon, et cetera, for years. There's no specific boutique gym and performance center that caters specifically for to endurance athletes.
Yep.
Meaning, from 5K to try Ironman and everything in between, how can you vector performance, community, and training all catered specifically towards the endurance athlete?
I mean, it's interesting you say that because a lot of groups that were popping up pre-COVID were trying to kind of slice up a race. So it's like, okay, you're training for this. Okay, we'll be like your cycling, you know, go to. We'll be your running go to, like the Mile High Run Club and a couple other ones. And then you had people doing swimming, kind of basically wherever they could find a pool in New
Right.
York City, which is somewhat limited.
Yeah.
But there actually wasn't a place that even like, an Equinox Lifetime wasn't in the city at that point that basically says, hey, we could actually have the programming and we actually have the modalities and the amenities, and the footprint, physical plant that can allow you to do that. So, when you came to me and said, hey, I want to try and figure this out, the first thing I said to you, which, for our audience here is like, figure out if there's a frustration that someone has already solved, and then you can either go and buy that or, parlay that into something where, maybe you're affiliated with it or an investor. But once you find that there isn't something there that you need to solve yourself, which is the way to start a business, then now turn that into like, an action plan and a business plan. So I'm glad you took the time methodically to figure that out because as a lot of people listening on here, sometimes entrepreneurs start a business, get it in their head, and then realize like, hey, that kind of already existed, or maybe there's some history that I can learn that why these things don't exist. Maybe the niche is too small to say yay or nay on the go. So, called endurance ohana is what you're going with. What's the basis for that? What's the genesis of the word ohana, which I think I know, but why don't you do it?
Sure, yeah. So endurance, right, as I mentioned, covers everything from the 5K all the way to your 250-mile trail race and everything in between. Ohana is the genesis, the Hawaiian word for community and togetherness, right? And this is about community. And like you said, you brought up and as to kind of a little plug here for the Halo Academy, going through the different gyms and the opportunities, and we looked at Equinox, Footprint, the Lifetime, and I'm a member at Lifetime, and it's a great facility. And it has 90% of the amenities that I would need as an endurance athlete, but it's not catered specifically to my fulfillment of performance specific for endurance athletics, right? So that's kind of the niche we're going after. But needless to say, so it's the Endurance Ohana. It's bringing together the best of what endurance sports can put together. So with that, our facility is going to be focused on kind of 5 key areas. There's the swim, and we're not going to do initially building a pool. We're going to do kind of the Michael Phelps swim spas, the 2 current pools. Those are actually great ways to kind of not only learn how to swim, but if you're a high performing swimmer, to get much better. So we're going to have an arena style bike cycle studio. So much like, you obviously there are a ton of cycle studios out there. This is going to be very specific, very tech oriented for indoor training to emulate that outdoor environment.
When I'm riding an indoor bike, I'm riding an indoor bike that's kind of, somewhat standard for indoor cycling. When I've seen guys do it on like Zwift. I think like, Zipper, I'd see him like on those, take his actual bike, put it
Yeah.
on one of those frame holders, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
actually do it on the bike that you're having. And it also, people in New York sometimes have like a storage issue with like having all their gear, at their place. Maybe would want to house it there. So my question is on the bike side, obviously you got technology, which is awesome. And you're going to filter that into probably like how you're moving through different areas, like doing a golf simulator where let's play Pebble Beach, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Should be amazing. Um, something else about baseball. I'm going to come back to you on. Having done that, is this like I'm riding the bike, my bike? Am I riding a bike typical of that, or am I riding an indoor cycling bike like into like Pete Moore did his whole cycle?
So you bring up a good point. There are three kind of different ways that you can approach the indoor cycling. Okay. The first is your standard, you know, cycle studio, lifetime fitness. You have the standard bikes that are fully adjustable, not fully adjustable, but adjust the height, kind of the forward motion. So you can get a decent fit on a stationary bike. They have power, they have Bluetooth connectivity, and they have a comfortable enough seat where you can be on there for a while. The second part is, as you mentioned, our good friend Zipper, who and I do the same. I have what's called a rear hub trainer, connected trainer. So Zwift, Garmin, Wahoo is another great trainer where you literally take off your rear wheel and you attach your bike. So whether you have a road bike or a time trial triathlon bike, you attach that. So you have your seating and your position is already set. You attach that to the trainer and that connects to a Bluetooth platform like a Zwift or a Ruvi, etc. The third option is kind of a hybrid of that. So Zwift and Wahoo actually developed a bike that now simulates like a road bike, but it has its own attached trainer. So what we're doing is because we're catering both to kind of an endurance enthusiast, but also a professional crowd, those folks who want to be on their own equipment. We're going to have two options available. We're going to have the a Zwift Wahoo bike already in the studio. About half of the studio will be that, and half of them will be rear hub. So if you want to come in and do your 5-hour Ironman training ride on your bike, you'll be able to do that, and everything will be tethered to a screen. What's really unique and what's part of the impetus for doing this is obviously during COVID, a lot of us were indoors. But if you're in a New York, Minneapolis, Boston, Chicago during the winter months, you're still even during the summer months because of traffic and safety issues. Folks are doing a lot more riding indoors, but the experience has become so incredible that you can literally emulate your entire ride. You can ride the entire Ironman Hawaii course on your trainer. And except for the wind on your face and the sun, glaring down your back, you get every element of that course in terms of being able to see maybe who's in front of you, who's behind you, the elements of going up a hill, coasting down a hill. So we can bring that environment indoors. And people love doing that. Now, the difference is, I do it in my basement. Maybe Zipper and others do it in their basement. That's no fun, man. We all enjoy that community. That's what, Soul Cycle is. It's you get in that studio with everyone else. You're motivated, Peloton. So this is about bringing the elements of community support, enthusiasm, energy in a high output, high velocity, high energy environment. We're going to have a DJ booth kiosk, a ton of LCD screens that you'll be able to see and do all your data, and you'll get the same feel, but you'll get that cycle studio environment. So that's a cycle studio part of it.
So a couple of things. One is I think we should say Zipper at least like 12 times during this episode. Right. Shout out to Zippy. Next thing is
the ball head.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll put up a screenshot of him right now, maybe with his whole family, and like him and I, like kicking field goals.
Sure.
The thing that I've been seeing recently on the technology side of simulations, which I'm finding fascinating, is there's a pitching machine now that basically has each one of the pitchers, and like in the I guess maybe like somewhere like between the locker room and the bench, the clubhouse, you can actually like go in and take swings against like the guy who's pitching, and it has all of his like mannerisms and release and everything else that they use to like talk about all the different types of balls that they're throwing and rotations. I mean, it's incredible. So just all this technology has basically moved into the racing space as well, as what you're saying. From endurance.
For sure. And the endurance space, and they have what's called Zwift now and Zwift Academy, and you can do indoor riding competitions. They have indoor types of triathlons, super sprint series where literally, super series where you're literally indoors, you're riding your trainer. It calculates, your variability, speed based on your weight and all different factors. What's great about the indoor training experience, right? Ultimately, this is a high performance center. And the indoor training experience enables you to become more proficient ultimately at your chosen sport, right? So whether it's cycling, running, et cetera. So if I want to become a more efficient or better cyclist, yes, I can get out on the roads, but you have a stoplight, you have
one of my friends got got hit by a car, so
Yeah,
you have a little bit of
exactly, right, and you
risk
have
as
all those,
well.
so you can, if you have a race coming up and many, folks that are at the amateur up to the professional level are doing that. I actually trained, I did Ironman Arizona in November. I did about half of my rides indoors on the Ironman course, so I literally knew every marker,
It's
every
awesome.
turn, and once I get out on the course, I'm like, I felt like I rode the course, 100
How'd that
times.
go for you? How'd it go
Well,
on a
went
time
great, went
standpoint?
great. Went with two of my good training buddies. They both qualified for Ironman Nice next year. I missed a slot by one, but it is what it
So let
is.
me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Obviously, guys like us and like dot zipper, we're looking at like what time do you think you would have gotten if you did not have the simulation? How many minutes do you think you were benefited from by actually doing the course prior?
Wow, that's a good question. So, in terms of helping with the adaptation, there are two things that I focus on. Basically, it was a three-loop course, right? So it was a pretty much straight the first 10 miles, and then there's an 8 mile steady climb. And I was able during my indoor rides to emulate the power output that I
Right,
was looking
exactly,
to
exactly.
on the uphill portion of the climb. So once I got to mile 10 or 11, I marked it. I had it on my bike. I knew, boom, I hit it. I hit my target wattage on my output, and it worked like a champ, man. I
Yeah,
mean, it's crazy stuff. So it's that type of preparation. And now, especially at the amateur, elite amateur, professional levels, where literally every minute counts at an Ironman
sure.
race. I missed my world championship slot. I think it was about 90 seconds, give or take.
Yeah, because I feel like that's one of the selling points with Endurance Ohana is like I will shave 10 minutes off of your best, something like that. Because
Yeah,
a lot of things in the fitness industry over time, and some of this you kind of got from our Halo Academy. Though it used to be Gold's Gym used to sell you a before and after picture. Okay,
right.
this is where you are today. This is what Gold's Gym does for you. Okay, and that before and after that sold a ton of memberships back
Yeah,
in the day. And now all people talk about is like, oh, I got these classes, I got this, I got that. It's like, dude, actually, what do I want to do? I want to look really good in the mirror. How quickly is that going to fucking take? Okay.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
and what do I have to pay for it? Okay. So, as you get older and, like Zipper's got a family and everything, I kind of like this. It's kind of funny that we keep mentioning him. Um, at some point you're just saying like, hey, like, what am I going to talk about? Like, this is like one of the most important things I'm doing, right? For you. You're like, the next 90 days, what have you been doing? I'm going to ask you, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to like 3 bar mitzvahs and like, I'm taking a business trip. No, you can be like, dude, I'm training for this. Okay.
yeah,
So it's kind of like the most important thing to you, outside of like your core nuclear values and things that you have to do personally.
right.
And now it's like, hey, I can shave like 8-10 minutes off your time or whatever that is and get you into the best condition. My question to follow on with that is like, what is this worth on a monthly basis to someone? And what are you
Yeah.
going to charge? And how many days a week do I need to come?
So we'll get into that in a second. I think just to kind of extend that point further, because you're an industry icon relative to this, and it's not performance is not, for example. So it's yes, it's what do I do on race day on that bike, but how did I get there? Right. So, and to talk about that, and I'll bring it forward in a second. So, so I trained on the indoor trainer, but guess what? What did I do to actually recover from that session and enable me to get better the next day and go out for my run? So what we're putting together, and where wellness has evolved so much in the last 5 to 10 years, now there's a sauna cold plunge shop on every corner right
Right,
here in
right.
Atlanta. Is that we're also bringing in the recovery part of this. So if you're interested in performance, if you're we the Z word again, right? If you are an endurance enthusiast and you love performing well at Ironman distance races, now as an athlete, it's about how do you perform on the given discipline, but it's what are you eating, how are you fueling for nutrition, what's your recovery. So we're going to have a recovery room. We got cold plunges, sauna, all the latest hyper ice is going to come in and outfit their typical thing. Strength and mobility and conditioning, right? So strength is such an important part, especially as we age, guys like us, to become stronger, be able to adapt physically to the demands of a particular sport, especially those longer and ultra endurance events. So it's being able to put all those components together in a facility. And yes, the cost, it's a premium cost because this is such a passionate group of individuals who are generally have high discretionary income. These events themselves cost a lot. The target right now is going to be in the high to 300, range per month as a
Okay.
membership, but that
Unlimited.
includes, yeah,
Yeah.
that includes access to swim, bike, run, strength, conditioning, recovery. Like, we're going to have a podcast, content creation studio, a quiet area. So just like, you go to a Lifetime now or an Equinox, you go there on a 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, the place is packed. You're like,
Yeah.
wait, what happened? This didn't happen in 2005, 2010, because now these are destinations, right? People spend their day there. They do their wellness routines. They get some work done, right? Maybe they have some meetings. They take their meetings there and a coffee instead of going out and boozing, that night. So it's really about creating a destination for those people who are passionate about endurance sports, can do everything they need to do.
Just as a couple of free advice items or things that I think would be super cool, because
Yeah,
obviously we look at all these things on a daily basis, and I'm kind of cherry picking like what's working or what I think's interesting, or as an example, EOS Fitness, which is one of the largest regional club chains in the Sun Belt. They have they put in posing rooms. Okay, so you can basically go on there, take pictures of yourself, have areas where you can do selfies or like do videos of you doing a, Olympic squats. So they're like
right,
catering towards like, hey, these people actually probably have a social media presence, not necessarily like for financial reasons, but because, hey, man, this is what I'm doing and I want you to know about it. It's important to me. Um,
right.
what could be really cool is to be able to have people, maybe you could like videotape them while they're going through each one of your programs, just like 30-second snippets. They can post it up on their social, and it could also say like who's a member of Endurance Ohana, right? And they would have to check it off as a public view. But like, here's all my stats. Here's what it was when I started. Here's what it is now. And another thing could be like $300 a month plus, $100 per minute that you off your last race or something like
Right.
like you're like an incentive based like boutique studio. And they'd probably be more than willing to pay it. My other comment is, and I don't know if this would apply to Colorado, but there was a business that a buddy of mine said, hey, I'm thinking about investing in this. All they do is pick up people's stuff for um, marathons, triathlons, and box it up and ship it, and then have it set up as like an entire business. So I wonder if there's like a storage and there's like a drop ship and there's, like, hey, I'm going to pack your kit for you as part of that. That could be a really interesting adjunct to the business.
Yeah, you mentioned, so the last part, it's funny. There was a company called Tri Bike Transport, right? Because getting your bikes, the run gear is easy, wetsuit you can stuff in your bag. But the bike, obviously, that's where you spend your most time on most of these, races, especially iron distance events. So they had a few companies, one of them, Tri Bike Transport, got into financial issues. And last year, bikes were left all over the world at world
Oh, geez.
championship races. People had trouble getting them back. Now with the soft cases and stuff, and the transportability is much better. But we are going to have space, of course, in Colorado, here in Atlanta, elsewhere, where people will be able to leave their bikes and all
Good.
that type of stuff. So being able to accommodate, right, to that kind of fluid customer. And back to your point too about, the technology piece, because technology for any business these days is an underpinning of what we'll be doing. We are going to onboard a technology platform that'll integrate with a lot of the other tech platforms out there. People will be able to track their progress. We are going to have kind of those selfie areas. We're also going to have a
Cool.
content creation studio because a lot of folks, even amateurs, like doing pods and all the content creation. So it's not just about what's happening today. It's taking a look at, the future state of, the customer and saying, okay, in an ideal situation for the passionate endurance enthusiast, what does that customer base need? And we've built that from scratch, and we're incorporating, all that into Endurance Ohio.
Could you do me a favor? Just remember, investigate one more thing to me, and this has nothing
Yeah,
to do with zipper. I'm just trying to hit the cap, by the way, on the zipper name.
yeah,
Um, could you think about doing a locker room
hmm
that is not like a locker and a locker, a bench and a locker in front of me? Make it seem like I'm a fucking professional hockey player, dude, and have this whole thing set up for me where this is my chair, this is my place, and there could be a locker part of it. But I feel like being like a feel like you're a professional athlete, and I'm probably not going to get there in this lifetime. Although I like to reference, I do have 4 years of eligibility left, and
Yeah.
I'm open to NIL deals, pretty
All right.
much in
Good.
any category. Um, that's something like I think people feel like I want to walk in here and feel like I'm like a professional athlete. And that could be one of the ways for at least for me, I'd get a chuckle and like get energized by it.
So, what's so you bring up a great point. So we've thought really carefully about kind of the experience, right? And experience is such an important part of everything that you do now, whether it's going to the store, your experience online shopping. So what we've developed is even the entrance is you're going to feel like you're walking through the start gate. So we're going to
Beautiful.
have
Love
LCDs
it.
all the way through. You're going to scan your little badge on your check-in kiosk, and you're going to go through and say, Pete, we notice you're training for the Iron World Championships, and all of a sudden vignettes and motivational videos and all that stuff will be queued up. So as you're walking through the
Love it, dude.
facility, just you, Pete, you'll have that direct communication modality.
Nice.
Right. So that entire throughput. And then when you leave at the end of the day, you're going to feel like you're walking through the finish line, let's say the Boston Marathon, what have you. So you're going to get that experience of you walking in through the start line. You have your training experience. You're motivated. You have a great day. You're rested, you're recovered. You come out, you're like, man, I just made it through the finish line, because
Awesome.
experience is such an important part of it. So we're thinking everything through.
Awesome. So we can talk forever, but let's close out here, and give props to Zipper. So as I'm walking through the U.S. Open, if you are a tennis player and you walk through the tunnel right before you get in onto the main court, there's a big sign and it says "Pressure is a privilege." Okay,
Yeah.
so I love what you're doing. You're basically saying people like, "Hey, man, look, don't change the way you think about sports. Don't change the way you think about like, oh, I just have to watch something to win or lose. Like I could actually perform on a team level or on a personal level." And we'll have all the information up here for everybody. Marcus, love that you're kind of pivoting into this full time. You always got the passion. And just for everyone to remember here, like thinking about what you're building and why you're building it and what the square footage is and what that experience is. Like I feel like you got that all kind of like jerry-rigged or pre-programmed in now. So look forward to checking it out and be in Colorado. Marcus' info will be up there. And, to Endurance Ohana, go Halo. Thanks, Marcus.
Appreciate the time, guys.
Awesome.